This is my book. And and uh, and it's thanks to all of you that this book got done, because it got finished during a sabbatical supported by this congregation. And if you look in the very back, there's some special thanks to our congregation about that. I wanted to share a reading from the book, and which is Tend to Your Spirit, Mindful Living with Chronic Illness. And on November 4th, the library hasn't put out an event yet, but there is going to be a library event for the book, and I'm excited to do that Tuesday, November 4th at 6 p.m. if you happen to be around. So this book is divided into seasons, and one of the first seasons is fall. And I thought it would be good to share from letting go, just as Sandra shared. Part of dealing with chronic illness is to find your path of how you live with it, how you find your healing. And this is called Letting Go of Ego and Certainty. I'm a youngest child, and as youngest children tend to do, I struggled with finding my identity and place within my family. One of the key identities that I claimed was strength. I was a 70s child who grew up in the South, and my role models were Wonder Woman, Charlie's Angels, and Laura Ingalls Wilder from Little House on the Prairie. I wanted to be a strong, capable girl, not dependent on any boy to save the day. At the skating rink in 4th grade, I remember gleefully arm wrestling one kid after another, usually boys, who had time for skating backwards when you could win arm wrestling competitions. Being strong and capable developed into a core part of who I wanted to be. I started restaurant work at age 15 and worked 3 jobs during college. And in those jobs, I was always the one who was asked to open the jars. It was a matter of pride that I could twist open that jar that no one else could open. In my jobs or in my personal life, capability and strength were one way to show that I could take care of myself. In my late 20s, I eventually became a massage therapist, and my hand strength became signature for the deep therapeutic massage that I offered. I had my own massage practice for over 10 years until I became a full-time minister here. After that, I still traded massages with other practitioners who would never go here. In the heart of the pandemic, in March 2021, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. I had a strong onset of crippling pain in my hands, along with increased swelling in my feet. And I found it difficult to do many tasks. I struggled with stairs in my house. And as a minister, I was concerned with keeping up with my responsibilities and learning how to function through pain. During one of the scariest and most stressful periods in my life, a lot of my physical capability and strength were stripped from me. Besides the pain and discomfort, I was surprised by the emotional loss that I experienced with this sudden change. I felt bereft of capability. Even a year and a half later, when I was writing this, I found myself miffed at the dinner table when my 16-year-old son was the one who could open a jar of spaghetti sauce. The next day, I needed to recruit his and my spouse's help to get the garden yard ready for winter. Late fall is unpredictable in Wisconsin. Winter can come hard and fast, whether you're ready or not. I had intended to help put away the garden furniture, pots, soil, but I found that I had no energy left for it between full-time work and parenting. When a hard snow fell, I felt like a squirrel caught before gathering all of my winter provisions. Luckily, 2 weeks after the snow, we had a Saturday with temperature in the 40s. I was able to work with my son and spouse to put away the furniture and better prepare for the bitter cold to come. I am learning to accept help with grace and more gratitude. Letting go of certainty, letting go of ego, letting go of the idea that I must be strong and able to control my days is a central part of my process of living with chronic illness. And lastly, I just wanted to share this little piece. It's called Gold Leaf. It's a poem. Throughout the book, there's these little gold leaves, and it's kind of like a gold star, but you give them to yourself when you remember things. We are the sum of our accomplishments, are we not? Counting our worth by degrees, achievements, and the glory of our completed task. This need for achievement clings tightly, like constricting saran wrap left on too long. Each call, each task needs that gold star, especially on days like these. Days when I can only wear soft socks and ice is my closest friend. Nights when sleep is impossible, doing tasks in the wee hours of the morning and catching up on the wee hours and catching up on rest in the morning. Can I keep my food down when adapting to this new medication? Did I catch all the details in the last call? Some days there is energy and joy and movement. Other days, my illness is like some invisible intruder, stealthy and unpredictable. On days like these, I can't keep pretending nothing has changed, any more than a tree can hold on to its leaves in the fall. My bare branches are showing. My body is telling me it is time to adapt. What if I shed the tight bands of success and gathered the leaves of change about me? Glorious as a tree in autumn, with orange leaves for compassion and complexity, yellow for caution and care, and brilliant red for joy in the moment, celebrating beauty as it comes. I am not done with my changes, and change is not done with me. I am learning to rest in uncertainty, to accept changes I cannot control. A gold leaf is my new star, new gold star, and it is enough for me. So, this whole idea this month is about cultivating compassion. And we live in a culture, as Sandra mentioned, that expects us to go, 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 to produce, to be in the midst of things. One of the first things you ask somebody is, what do you do? Where did you go to school? It's not, how are you communing with the universe is not our first question. And I'm a Gen Xer, and I was definitely a feral child. I grew up with a mother who had had enough of being a minister's wife and doing what her mother thought she should do, and she was going to have a good time, and the kids could go play in the woods. But they didn't need to go to dance lessons or wear makeup or be debutantes. And so like many of the 70s generation, we raised ourselves in many ways, which made us pretty capable and strong in some ways, I think. I was a latchkey kid. And being strong was a way that I felt safe, because I could do things. And so in March 15th of 2020, we were one of the first congregations to choose to shut down in-person services. And then we entered into the highly stressful, many, many hours of preparation, like many in my field, and like many chaplains, many caregivers, many teachers, all sorts of people were learning, how do you work? How do you create community? How do you adapt and stay together? How do you love one another when you have to wear masks and do it from a distance? And so this congregation was amazing. We learned how to be online. We learned how to sit 10 feet away from each other at the park, and we had little gatherings of 10 or 5 or whatever it was. We wore a mask. We did our things that we needed to do to get through as a community. Unfortunately, like many caring professionals, the stress of holding that together affected my body, and it affected my mind. And just like many of us have trauma or health effects, and that happens in times of high stress, or caregiving for many people. And so in March of 2021, I found that I couldn't even hold a pair of scissors. I couldn't lift 5 pounds. I couldn't walk up and down the stairs without great pain. And it happened very suddenly. Over a period of years, I kept telling my doctor, I don't understand. My hands keep hurting. And he's like, oh, well. And I did martial arts, and I thought I really felt strong doing that. but I found that I didn't recover like my fellow classmates, and I was always sore, and I thought, well, I'm just out of shape. But there was something kind of waiting in that time. And so as that came on, I didn't know what to do. I'm used to being the one that can think through things or do things, or feeling out of control was terrifying. And this happens to many people as we age, as we have babies, as all sorts of things in our lives can make us feel that way. And for me, I always looked to community. I always looked to find other people, because that if I find other people, then I know that they have wisdom and I'm not alone. And I want people to feel that in this community too. I know people come here for all sorts of reasons, and grief and joy and all sorts of reasons. And one of the people that I found was Florence Caplow. She is a Zen Buddhist. She's a Zen priest. And it turns out she's exactly 10 years older than I am. She was diagnosed literally to the month that I was diagnosed. She's a Unitarian Universalist minister as well. And so I went to a forum, and I tried to find, hey, you ministers, anybody else dealing with this sort of illness? And it turned out she was. And so we started talking on the phone, and we compared medications and all those nitty-gritty things that you do to get through hard times. And so we companioned each other for about 1.5 years. We started meeting up. She lived in Urbana, Illinois at the time. And then after a while, it became apparent to me that there's nothing out there that is interfaith, as we read books, and also just a call to create something that says that you're not alone. And so we worked on this book together for about 18 months, and we created a covenant together, because when you work with somebody, that can be kind of tense if you don't come to an agreement. And we said, if we're feeling bad, it's okay. We'll just come back to it next week. So sometimes I'd be having a bad week, and sometimes she would be having a bad week, and we would just, but together we kept on going. And what I find important about this is we were 2 white women with rheumatoid arthritis. So that's not enough to write a book about. So what we did is, when we pitched this to our publisher, is we said, we want to interview people with diverse stories, diverse identities, diverse illnesses and ages. And so through that experience of talking to people, what was that like for you? And we paired the stories with our themes. There's themes of anger, there's themes of play and Sabbath and rest, there's letting go, there's hygge, which is, I think I said that right. Where's Krister? So trying to find that humanity in the story, and the healing power of talking through, like coming up here and telling you that some days I have trouble getting out of bed terrifies me. I don't want you to be worried about me. I don't want you to feel like you have to take care of me. But I know some of you have trouble getting out of bed too sometimes. And I think, it's always important to know that we live in a community, and no one of us does all the things. And one of the best things about living with chronic illness is that it has taught me that it is okay to not be okay. It is okay to ask for help. And it is okay to be present in lots of ways. And so the gift of being in our bodies and being real with ourselves is that we get to know who we are. And for me, it was looking at some of my past life. What were the messages that were taught to me in this go, 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 go culture? What were the messages that were taught to me as a Gen Xer? And so when I think of the different stories that I learned from, I interviewed my son Aaron. I interviewed people in this community. Bob Nolan actually is in this book as well, and that we all have a story. We all have wounds that we carry, and by being mindful, by finding tools that can help us, we can get through those times. And so what I didn't talk about is there are mindful practices like journaling, there are playlists, there are little sticky notes. I don't know about you, but that was one of the ways that I goofily I would give myself sticky notes to remind me of things. And I used to joke with a friend of mine when she did that, she would put them all over her apartment, and I'm just like, okay. but I get it. I get it. Sometimes we have to be reminded that it is okay to not be okay. It is okay to ask for help. It is okay to be different each day. And I think what is powerful is that the more you tell your story, just like in our new member classes, we find out how much we have in common. And we find out how much we can do together. And so when you tend your spirit, you tend to the entire part of yourself that is human, the beginning of your story, the story that's unfolding, and the way in which you live each day. And so I'm going to close with one little reading that I love. And this is Camas Lilies by Lynn Unger. Consider the lilies of the field, the blue banks of Camas opening into acres of sky along the road. Would the longing to lie down be washed away by that beauty? Abate if you knew their usefulness, how the natives ground their bulbs by flower, how the settlers' hogs uprooted them, grunting in gleeful oblivion as the flowers fall. And you, what of your rushed and useful life? Imagine setting it all down, papers and plans, appointments, everything, leaving only a note, gone to the fields to be lovely. Be back when I'm through with blooming. Even now, unneeded and uneaten, the camas lilies gaze out above the grass from their tender blue eyes. Even in sleep, your life will shine. Make no mistake, of course your work will always matter. Yet Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. And lastly, Phyllis Whipking, as she aged, she would often say, she had a big desire to be useful. And she said, Julie, I can't help out anymore. I can't help out anymore. And after a while, we would try and get her to sit at one of the tables downstairs, and we would get her to talk with newcomers. And she would greet people with her glittery hats. She wore a different glittery hat each Sunday. And her stories and her welcome and her hospitality became the gift that helped her feel useful, that helped us know her stories and her to know other people's stories. So may all your days be filled with the stories of yours and others. Amen.